is here. First, to Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, who represents New York on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman, good to have you with us today. Thank you for being here. So, Eric Adams, the new mayor, who people had very high hopes for in New York City and still have high hopes for. Everybody should want him to succeed. The other day, he made a misstep. He said, you know, there's a perception that people aren't safe on the subway. It's not really the case. He had to really walk that back. And here's what he said about it after this killing of this young woman on the platform. Watch.
We're going to drive down crime, and we're going to make sure New Yorkers feel safe in our subway system. And they don't feel that way now. I don't feel that way when I take the train every day or when I'm moving throughout our transportation system. That is our battle, and that is what I'm going to do as the mayor of the city of New York.
So how's he going to do that? Do you think any of these things are actually waking people up to what's going on?
You know, this has been going on for years, and I've been saying that we need to restore public safety in our city. We can do it by repealing the radical bail law that was passed in Albany. We can do it by ensuring the NYPD has their plainclothes unit. We can do it by pushing back on politicians like AOC and some of the others who are saying they don't want to see police officers on our subways. They don't want to see people locked up in jail. That's how we're going to restore public safety when Democrats finally decide to push back against that radical left. Now, in New York, with regards to mental illness, Mayor de Blasio had a Thrive NYC program, spent billions of dollars.
It was run by his wife, correct?
Yeah, and people are still asking what happened to the money. Nobody knows where the money went. I've been calling for that to be audited, and quite frankly, the DOJ should be looking at that. In addition, on the state level, Governor Cuomo decided to shut down mental health beds and hospitals. We lost thousands of beds, and right now, you probably have about 15 per 100,000 in population. The recommended number is 50. So that is another reason why we are seeing people being put back on the street. We need to utilize Kendra's law more to make sure that people get court-ordered treatment.
It's a great point. We need safe, functioning mental health institutions all across the country. This man's own sister said he should never have been on the street. Who would know better than his own family about what the threat was? Look at this from the New York Post editorial board. Heed the pleas of the subway shover's sister. It's long past time for the public to tell the advocates to shove it so we can start getting the severely mentally ill the help that they need and protecting the public from them. So in many cases, they need medication, Congresswoman, and then they need to be sure that they continue to take that medication. There was a big movement over the decades to make sure to sort of mainstream people, to make sure that they could live out with the rest of the public. In many of these cases, it's not working.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing is, New York State has a law named Kendra's Law, named after a woman who was shoved in front of a subway and killed 20 years ago. And so decades later, we are still dealing with this same problem because they haven't utilized Kendra's Law to the extent that they should. I've suggested that jails, that hospitals, they should be filing these petitions on behalf of people, particularly those who are homeless and maybe don't have relatives that can do it on their behalf. There also needs to be an education to teach relatives of loved ones who are mentally ill that this is an option. And I think that would go a long way in making sure these people get the service that they need, get the medication that they need, that they are under supervision, and that's where we should be focusing a lot of this attention. Yeah. But the other aspect of this is clear. You can't keep releasing people who commit crimes back onto the street over and over again. Some of these individuals are career criminals, and they have committed dozens of crimes. They have been convicted many, many times, and yet they continue to be released back onto the street. And we have to push back on the radical left who want to keep dismantling our laws.
I would encourage, anybody to take a look at the numbers. And you have 66 rapes so far in New York City. This is just in 2022, which is only 18 days old. 632 robberies, 895 felony assaults. This is just in the first few weeks of January in 2022. Also put up the New York Post, because this is the other part of the story. You know, these two young women we have covered, but we have also covered on this show these young people, 21 people under the age of 18 who were killed in street violence in New York City. This is a huge rampant problem that doesn't get enough coverage. So when you listen to Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice in Washington talk about how he's going to address this problem, and the president, President Biden, what are you hearing? And do you think anything's going to change? Because they're getting the feeling that they're losing voters, especially people who, many of whom fall into minority groups in the inner cities.
You're absolutely right. Public safety has become an epidemic here across America, particularly in these Democrat-run cities. What the president should be doing is addressing the nation and getting serious about the DOJ going after people who are hardened criminals. He can start by securing the border, by the way, which is where we're seeing a lot of nefarious activity occurring, and fentanyl streaming over our border, killing our young people, empowering drug cartels and the drug dealers on the street. So if you have judges, though, that keep releasing people back onto the street and prosecutors who won't prosecute like we do in Manhattan, we're going to continue to face this issue time and again.
Congresswoman Malliotakis, thank you very much from New York. Good to have you with us today in D.C. So LAPD officer Dion Joseph is also with us in